Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Music and Moonsalts. I am your host, Chris Bourdine. Today, we're talking about the sophomore effort by Linkin Park, Meteora. And to help me do that today, you may know him from a little show called Grapsody. It's Phil Lindsey. Phil, how we doing today, man?
I'm good. Looking forward to talking to you about at least one of my favorite albums from easily one of my favorite rock groups.
Yeah, some you might remember Phil was on about a year and some change ago, talking about Queen, and obviously I've wanted to have him back on, and I heard him talk on on Grapsody a couple different times about Linkin Park, and I knew that this anniversary was coming up, and this album in particular has a special spot with me as well. So I knew Phil was the man for the job, and he agreed to come on. So I appreciate your time today.
Yeah, I might have a physical copy of Meteora somewhere. It's one of the few albums I still have a CD for.
So I have my here's okay. So here's the story. I This album came out like late March of 2003. So just a couple months before my high school graduation, and my best one of my two best friends actually had the album, and we were working on a school project. We had to put together scrapbooks for our English class, and he came over because my mom was really into the whole scrapbooking thing, so she had all the tools and stuff. So he would come over, so we could work on our scrapbooks, and he had this album, and we played it while we were working on it, and I'm like, oh, this is really good. Obviously, Hybrid Theory was a huge album. In the End was everywhere. So obviously I was familiar with Linkin Park, but this is the first time I really listened to a full album of theirs, and I did what any broke high schooler did. I burnt with a computer with a CD burner. I burned myself a copy of it, and I think I still have that somewhere. And the funny thing is with the burn, I don't know if it was the CD, the blank CD I used, or what it was, but the last 2 or 3 seconds of each song is cut off. So yeah, so it's funny because even listening to it back now, I hear it. Uh, the hearing those last few seconds actually play throws me off a little bit. It's like when I used to have some tapes that my dad recorded off his old albums, and they had skips in them, and so I hear those songs with the skips in it, even if I'm listening to them without it. So it's kind of a funny deal. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, I played this thing like crazy after I got that copy from him. Uh, and it was funny too because my friend that I got it from, Gerald, he's like, he was not the first person I would expect to have a Linkin Park CD. He was like Mr. Michael Jackson, and like his taste. He's the first guy that I knew where it was okay to like a bunch of different uh, genres of music. He was all over the place. We connected because we were both huge DC Talk fans because our families were both involved in church. So
mhm.
we bonded over that, and then yeah, he was a big Michael Jackson fan, and Depeche Mode, and the Killer. Like he was all over the place. So
Yeah. I feel like for a lot of people, at least in the early 2000s, Linkin Park was their gateway to rock music. At least for me, they were. I mean, I had a lot of other bands that I enjoyed in college, but for me, definitely Linkin Park was like my gateway to rock music.
yeah. So where did I mean? Did you hear them on the radio, or where? How did you encounter them in the first place?
Well, two things really made them blow up, and like to me, because like I heard them on the radio, of course, and I I had Hybrid Theory as well. I bought that album. Um, but the thing that just really put them over, of course, was when they did Collision Course with Jay Z, and then it was just like Linkin Park was everywhere from then on. Like I feel like that was huge for them.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a big deal. I remember that crossover. Um, I think that came out the year after this. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, that I remember that being a huge deal. But yeah, they were definitely around this era. They were the biggest rock band on the planet, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I'm a Lupe fan, and he has a song called "Gets the Girl" off one of his mixtapes. And one of the lines on there is Meteora was nice, but I bought Hybrid Theory twice.
Nice, sweet. And yeah, it's just to speak to how huge they were and how this album, it, like I said, it came out. It was March 25th, 2003. Debuted at number one. Sold over 800,000 copies since first week. It's sold over 16 million copies worldwide. It's the eighth best-selling album of the 21st century.
Wow.
That's pretty nuts. It's 7 times platinum. Yeah, just an insane album as far as the commercial success. So, it's funny too because are you? So when you do whether it's whatever type of music, are you more of a what draws you in first? Are you a music guy? Or are you a lyrics guy? Or is it everything? Or what kind of grabs you first?
I mean, it's different depending on who the artist is, because there are some artists that their lyrics aren't the best, and but production is great, and the reason why, like, I mean, if you're a hip hop fan, for example, like take an act like Ray Shrimmer. I'm not listening to Ray Shrimmer for lyrics. Like, I'm not listening to No Flex Zone and thinking like this is great lyrics. Like, this is great production from Mike Will made it. But then there's other acts that I feel like you connect on a different level with them lyrically, and I feel like that was kind of always the thing with Linkin Park. Like, the music is good, but it's hard to not connect with not just the lyrics, but just connect with Chester as an artist as well.
Yeah, yeah, and I really love the dynamic of they rap rock was definitely big at the time, but most of those bands were it was like Limp Bizkit with Fred Durst. It was one guy. I love the dynamic in Linkin Park with where you have Mike doing all the rap and stuff, and then you had Chester doing the singing, and him and Corey Taylor I put up in that same upper echelon of guys who are both phenomenal singers, but also can like scream their heads off too, and
Yeah,
they're just amazing.
yeah, I agree. Yeah, and I think like the first time I listened to Linkin Park, I'm just like, no, if I can get into screaming constantly, but like I feel like it's just hard to not, because it's like, especially their first two albums, it was just so infectious. Like, it's hard to not be like screaming your heart out with this guy, because it was just hard to not connect with.
Yeah, yeah, especially that breakdown section or that middle section in One Step Closer. The shut up when I'm talking to you. It's hard not to like just go with it and get all that aggression out. But so Chester during talking about this album, he told MTV that we don't talk about situations, we talk about the emotions behind the situations. Mike and I are two different people, so we can't sing about the same things, but we both know about frustration and anger and loneliness and love and happiness, and we can relate on that level. And that's clear when you listen to this album.
Yeah, yeah, I feel like their dynamic works really well, both creatively, and I just feel like they played off each other well. It never felt like any of the verses where Mike came in and rapped, they didn't fit.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. And then their drummer Rob said that they wanted to create a group of songs that would sit well together, because we wanted to make a record that you could just pop into your CD player, and from beginning to end there would be never be a spot where you'd start daydreaming. And yeah, there were like 0 skips on this album.
Yeah.
So, you got any other like big picture things before we kind of dig into the songs themselves?
Big picture things. I don't know. Linkin Park is just special to me for a lot of reasons. Like I said, not just because I feel like they were my gateway to rock music, but also just like, I don't know, like Chester is such a unique dude. And I mean, rest in peace. Of course, he's not here anymore. But
Yeah.
I've said many times that when he passed, it was very difficult for me as somebody that struggled with depression several points in my life, and he went through his own hardships. And like like I said, to see somebody that struggled with those things on such a big stage succumb to them was just really difficult.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember where I was when I found out. I remember exactly what the back room of what store I was in when I was on my phone and I found out, and just there was that couple year stretch where just like it was him, and before that it was why am I drawing a blank on his name now? Chris Cornell. Jeez, oh
Yeah,
Pete. And I can't remember if Weiland was before Cornell or where he, but it was like it was right in that same time frame where it was just like bam, 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 almost.
yeah,
Um,
just really, really sad.
yeah.
Just as somebody that enjoyed his music and just supported him in a lot of stuff that he went through, just sad.
Mm-hmm. I even liked speaking of Weiland, like I liked when Chester went and he sang for STP for a little bit there. I thought that stuff was pretty good too.
Yeah,
Um, so there's like two or three really big songs on this album. The first single was "Somewhere I Belong," and I guess they this video actually won the best rock video at the 2003 VMAs. Um, and Mike Shinoda told Spin that they tried like 40 different choruses before they found out the right one that fit the song. Um, and they finally would be like, they'd play it. They'd have one where they thought that it was good enough, and they play it for people, and they'd be like, "Yeah, that's cool." And he's like, "Man, that's not the response we want. We want it to be like the greatest thing you've ever heard." And so it's like, all right, we gotta go back, go back and try it again. And so like 40 tries later, they finally got the one that they wanted.
yeah, yeah. I think the thing every time I listen to this album, I guess the theme of it is kind of acceptance. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, they cover that theme in several different routes. Because I mean, the first song on the album is clearly like a breakup song,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like in a lot of ways, numb, the closing song on the album is very much about acceptance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, I remember one of the other things I remember about this album is so when I was listening to it, I just started playing bass like a year before. I
Mm-hmm.
just picked it up, and so I had one of my classes my senior year was some computer class. I don't remember what it was. So I went and I printed out like the bass tablature for every song on the album, and so I could go home and play some of them. And I remember because like I didn't have a 5 string at the time. I only had a 4 string, so you had to like detune the thing like crazy. My low E string was just so loose. It was so detuned to get the right sound. But that I somewhere belong where I belong was one of the ones that I loved to play along with back then.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
I mean, great song. I think the chorus, like you said earlier, Chester was very good singer. It wasn't just like he could get on and
yeah,
belt out like these yelling parts of the song, but I think melodically he sounds great on here. I thought the vocals on this were amazing first time I heard it.
yeah, for sure. Um, the second single was "Faint." Um, and apparently MTV produced a mashup of this song with "Toxic" by Britney Spears.
Hmm. I don't
I'm,
know if I've ever heard that.
I don't think I have either. I was gonna look it up before we did this, and I just ran out of time because that sounds weird and interesting all at the same time.
I guess
Um,
they both kind of have like that violin at the beginning. It's
yeah,
both like string. I guess I don't know.
I guess yeah. You say that, and it kind of does make sense now that I think about it. Um, this video was directed by Mark Romanek. I think that's how you pronounce it. Who actually directed 1 Hour Photo? Remember that movie?
Oh yeah,
with
very
Robin
very
Williams.
weird movie.
Yeah. And he also did a lot of music videos. He did the Johnny Cash's "Hurt" music video. He did the Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson "Scream" video, and he did the "Shake It Off" Taylor Swift video.
Wow, I did not know the director of 1 Hour Photo directed all of these.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing when you like research some of these music video directors and also see what else they've done, or vice versa, movie directors, and see what kind of music videos they've directed. It's kind of wild, the crossover there. Um, and then yeah, so that's "Numb" was this last song on the album. It's the third single, and this was the big hit. It's kind of the I don't know. I don't know if sequel's the right word, but it has some of the same notes of not literal notes, but just of in the end to me. Like the parallels are there as far as the quiet, the piano part that goes through the majority of the song, and then the loud choruses there. And this one was the big crossover hit on the album because it peaked at number 11 on the Billboard Hot 100.
Yeah, I would say "Numb" is like one of their biggest records ever. Probably like a quintessential Linkin Park record.
It's definitely the song I hear the most off this album whenever I do listen to the radio. Like it's definitely "Numb" that I hear the most.
Yeah, of course, that was before What I've Done. What I've Done was everywhere when that song came out.
Yeah. The because that was the Transformers one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And then but Numb's a great track, for sure. And the next single was "From the Inside," which I don't remember hearing on the radio. I love the song. It's my second favorite song on the album. I think this is my favorite Chester vocal performance on the album. Like the chorus is he's just singing his ass off during this chorus. But yeah, I don't remember
that being the single at all.
Yeah, I know.
Like I would have guessed the next single you were going to say was "Breaking the Habit" because that's the video from this album that I remember the most.
Yeah, that was the fifth and final one. It was because "Breaking the Habit" was the fifth and final single, and all 5 singles hit number 1 on the modern rock charts. And no other artist had done that before. And "Breaking the Habit" also became a top 20 song on the Hot 100. So this one had a little bit of crossover appeal as well. So a common misconception is that this song was actually written by Chester, given some of his struggles that he had in his life, but it actually was written as a instrumental by Mike. And he was only gonna do it as an instrumental. But then the rest of the band convinced him to change it into a song with lyrics. And he kept writing them, and he didn't think they sounded all that right until he showed the lyrics to Chester, and Chester started tearing up when he was reading them. And that's when they decided that, this is the way this song's got to be.
Yeah, "Breaking the Habit" is definitely one of my favorite songs on the album. It's definitely this song I think about the most when I hear this album because I saw the video the most.
Mm-hmm.
Really cool video with like the anime style and the guy jumping off the building. I think it's probably one of my favorite Linkin Park videos just because, like I said, it's just so, to me, in that era, I saw that video so much. And at the time, MTV used to show videos like right after shows went off. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
But they'd always show bits and pieces of "Breaking the Habit" after a show went off.
Okay,
so, yeah, I would think about "Breaking the Habit" when I think about Linkin Park a lot. Just the visuals from that video.
So this song, Do you ever have a thing where like you associate two things together that actually have nothing to do with each other? Like for me, I associate this album. When I think of this album, I also think of The Matrix Reloaded because they came
Yeah,
out around the
because
same time.
yeah, because Sessions is on the soundtrack, right?
Okay,
Isn't it?
okay, it is. All right, so I'm not
Yeah,
completely crazy. All right, thank
I
you.
think it plays during the closing credits at some point, doesn't it?
Yeah, I see. I knew it. I knew I wasn't crazy. Thank you for confirming. But yeah, but Sessions definitely. Yeah, you're right. And then also the ending of Breaking the Habit, the way that they the effect they use on Chester's voice as he's holding that last note at the end of the song, and his voice kind of distorts, and that always reminded me of the Matrix, like when they show, them getting plugged in, or like getting on the phone to get pulled out of the Matrix. Like it always reminded me of that a little bit too.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely associated with that time period and
yeah,
just like how big the Matrix was at that time period and how big Linkin Park were. Yeah,
that was the first movie I ever went to a midnight showing of.
really. I
Yeah,
can't remember the first time rather I went to midnight showing.
yeah, that was the first one, and now shoot, you can go see movies like 7 o'clock the day before. Like it's no, but back then it was like midnight was like the big thing.
Oh yeah, I remember going to see Dark Knight at midnight.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, so the I don't know about you, but like there was another song that wasn't really officially released as a single. But I know like on Detroit radio, both the rock station in Detroit and then the alternative rock station that we got out of Windsor, RIP 89X. Uh, they played "Lying from You" a lot.
Hmm.
Which is actually my favorite song on the album. I love the riff that is at the beginning of the song and during the bridge in the middle. I just there was one. This was my favorite one to play when I was like I said, when I printed out all those tabs. This was my favorite song to play along with. Um, so yeah, I really like the song, and it got some radio play here in Detroit area.
Yeah, that was definitely a big one. What is the mashup song? Why am I drawing a blank? What does it mash up with on Collision Course? Isn't it damn it, how do I not know this?
Uh,
Dirt Off Your Shoulders. Is it?
let's see here. Let me pull it up as my camera goes. Yes, yes, dirt off your shoulder. As my camera decides to wig out. All right. Yeah. Cool people. You get to see this weird there we go. All right. Awesome.
Yeah, no, so yeah, when I hear "Lying from You" now, I cannot unhear like Jay doing his ad libs and getting ready to go into his verse for "Dirt Off Your Shoulder." Like I always associate it with Jay doing "Dirt Off Your Shoulder."
Yeah. Yeah. We'll definitely I'll have to have you back on next year and we'll do that that collision course for sure. The Big Pimpin' paper cut mashup is just it's just perfect.
It is. It is one of those things where it on paper it sounds like it shouldn't work together, but it does.
Yeah. 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 Um so what are the others any other songs that kind of stand out on this that we haven't talked about yet?
Um, that stand out. I mean, like I said, the opening song "Don't Stay" is just such a great record, and
Yes.
it is a tremendous breakup record.
Yeah.
I feel like if you've gone through a bad breakup, it is definitely one of those songs that is just like very cathartic. And so I feel like it's the perfect way to open the album, and it's a perfect way to jump into, like I said, this theme of acceptance that goes throughout the entire record.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, for sure. Um I liked Nobody's Listening a lot too. Um they actually use like a traditional Japanese flute. I'm not even gonna try and pronounce the name of it, but it is a traditional Japanese flute. And that one's just a straight. I mean, that's pretty much a straight like rap song with, Chester singing on the choruses, but there's no guitars or anything in that one.
Yeah, it's such a it's such an odd song because, like I said, it has this like Japanese flute. Um, I you can see how that turned into stuff that Mike Shinoda did later with like Fort Minor
Yeah, oh
and
yeah.
some of his other production stuff he's done. But it's such a quirky song that I feel like only Mike Shinoda could pull off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
'Cause, I mean, he's done similar things on not Minutes to Midnight, but he what is the album right after Minutes to Midnight? Thousand Suns,
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
and how he's got like this like kind of like reggae, got like this reggae vibe going for the entire song. And it's like, how does this fit on a Linkin Park song album? I don't know, but it's Mike Shinoda, and he somehow figures out to make it work. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Um. Yeah. But yeah, going back, the session instrumental is really cool. Um. And then yeah, easier to run. That's a good song too. That's a little more on the slower side, a little bit more of a ballad. But I like that one a lot too.
Yeah. Yeah. There aren't really any songs on here that I don't like. Depending on the mood I'm in, there are songs that I may skip,
Mm-hmm.
but there aren't any real bad songs on this album.
No, 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 no. Yeah, like you said, if there's depending on what you're going for, if you're in a certain mood, but if you're just listening to the album to listen to it, yeah, there's nothing where I gotta hurry up and hit the skip button because everything on here is just really good. Um, yeah, I think, um, like I said, it just gets redundant because like Figure Nine's a good song, Hit the Floor is a good song. Um, I think that's it. I think we touched on everything else.
Yeah,
Um,
I definitely think that a lot of their like most popular records are on this song on this album.
yeah,
And I mean, personally, I think Hyper Theory is the better of their first two albums. But when you're picking the album that has like their biggest hits on it, I think it's Meteora.
yeah. I would say that's probably right. I have to see where exactly as far as like because in the end was everywhere.
Yeah,
Uh, but yeah, I mean, other than that, this one
like
definitely between Numb and Breaking the Habit definitely has the two.
yeah, like Faint is a huge record for them as well. I feel like that's
Mm-hmm.
one of their most iconic records as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. 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 Like you said, that violin intro is pretty great, and then the way it just kicks in with the heavy guitars and stuff is just nice little yin and the yang there. Yeah, they're like I said, they for a second album, like you can't get much better than this. Um,
Yeah,
so
I feel like they came out the gate really well on those first two albums, and
yeah,
then
for
they took
sure.
a long time to drop their third album. And I don't know how you fall in the great divide of Linkin Park fans on Minutes to Midnight. I find Minutes to Midnight to be extremely underrated. I've never really understood the hate for it, but I also understand it followed up two of their best albums, and it's really tough to follow up Meteora. So I don't know.
It's they definitely. I think they tried to start doing different stuff, and you know how that goes with especially. I mean, I'm sure it's every artist, but rock bands especially, people they get really territorial about their sound,
Yes,
uh, and not straying too far from what brought them to the dance, so to speak. Um,
yeah, and again, I think that's part of what makes Linkin Park special for some people is that those first two albums are very coming of age albums. Like I feel like you have to be a certain age to have gravitated to them and connect with them. So I feel like once you got out of that age bracket, you couldn't keep making the same music. Like they couldn't keep making rebellious music, and they couldn't keep making music about wanting to belong and be accepted anymore because they were too old to make that.
right? Yeah, exactly. and the people that they were competing against were completely different by that time too. I mean,
Yeah,
early 2000s, like I said, you got Limp, you've got Korn, obviously, uh, you know, Kid Rock was still actually doing rock stuff. Like that was kind of who. And then by the time you get into the mid to later aughts, it's like your Avenged Sevenfolds and stuff like that. They're kind of trying to keep up with. And you got to remember too that one of the big criticisms, at least critically, of Meteora is that they didn't change enough from Hybrid Theory. That it sounded too much like Hybrid Theory. So you know how. So they probably tried to skew a little bit the other way. On all the albums after that. So.
yeah, and I understood that. I understood that they needed to change,
Mm-hmm.
not just as a group, but just as men. They just weren't the same people anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I totally understood it. And to me, listening to Minute to Midnight, it just felt like I grew up with this band. Like, so I understood, as an adult, I'm not in the same place that I was when I discovered Hyper Theory.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right. Is there anything else you want to say about this, Phil?
Yeah, I think that this is one of my favorite albums. It just came at such a pivotal time period for me, just as a fan of music. Because like I said, a lot of my taste in music changed around 2003, 2004. I mean, we already talked about it. I don't think you could pick a bigger rock band at that time period than Linkin
No.
Park.
No, they were. I mean, and it's even it's even more unfathomable now because like trying to find an actual rock band that's on anywhere close to the level they were at then now is impossible. But yeah, they were in the same breath. We talked about the mashup MTV did with Britney. Like they were in that same echelon as far as not just rock stars, but like pop music as well. Like they were right up there with everyone else in those early 2000s.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Linkin Park is definitely one of those groups. You just had to be there at the time, and like I can understand if you weren't in that age bracket or you older, you might not have understood it, but it was just one of those things. You had to be there.
oh yeah, my dad hated hated this that I ended up getting this. He's like, "What are you listening to?" I'm like, sorry."
Yeah, you had to be there, man.
Yeah.
Especially the run from 2003 up to 2004. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Um, it's like there's something else I was gonna say about it, but I can't now. It's gone. So, uh, yeah. Yeah. Just check this album. Oh, that's what it was. Like it's been years since I listened to it before. The last week or so when I knew we were doing this, and the first time I listened to it all the way through again, I'm like, it felt like I just listened to it last week. Like it's just one of those ones that sticks with you. Like you said, if you were there at the time, it's
yeah. It was just the era, man, and that's why, like I said, it would be very easy for me to say that nobody's listening doesn't work, but it does because I feel like a lot of fans at that time were probably into the same kind of things that Mike Shinoda was into, like whether it be Japanese art, manga, or anime. And I feel like that's another reason why they connected with people because, like, if you were into like all these alternative things like that, they were just such a big part of that era. And I mean, so it does make sense also when you say that you associate them with the Matrix because they were just such a big part of just nerd culture at that time.
yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, do you think the wrestling move is named after the album, or is it named after the place in Greece?
I don't know. That's a good question. I have no idea. I I actually don't know why the album is called Meteora. So I don't know.
Yeah. So they got it from there's a mountainous area in Greece where there's a bunch of Greek Orthodox monasteries built into it, and it's called
Yeah.
Meteora, and they've got it from there because they thought it sounded huge So
Oh,
so
yeah.
but yeah, the first time I heard, I saw the move and heard it called the Meteora, that I immediately thought of this album. Like, I wonder if that's where that came from.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, it's just so many things I associate in that period of my life with Linkin Park. I mean, just like graffiti, I have friends that did graffiti, and again, like this, they were just such a big part of that, like that scene. Like the guy on the cover of the album is doing graffiti.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's doing like the big mural that's in the inside cover, I think.
Okay. All right. Yeah, like I said, I only had I only had a bootleg copy, so I never got to see any of the aside of the cover. I've never got to really look at any of the inside artwork. So, um, feels was okay. Maybe you might remember, because obviously I didn't remember Sessions being on the Matrix soundtrack. It feels like Faint should have been a pay-per-view theme song back in that time.
It may have been because I don't remember. It was
Yeah.
such a big record at that time. Like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was.
I wouldn't be surprised either. I couldn't find anything to confirm it, but it just feels like it should have been if it wasn't. So
Yeah, a lot of those pay-per-view songs kind of started to blend together at some point because it felt like they were all kind of very similar, like screaming rock music, and it was just like they all sounded very like they're a distinct one, like the Creed record, of course, like some of those Nickelback records, for better or worse, that are like burned into our brains.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, they all started to blend together after a while.
Yeah, for sure. So, all right, man. This was great. I love talking about this album with you. So I had a really good time. I mean, obviously, I think people should know you already and know the Grapsody guys. Because in my opinion, I'm not just blowing smoke because you're here. Like it's my favorite wrestling podcast that I listen to. You guys are all great. So it's noon Eastern every Saturday, correct?
That's right, noon Eastern every Saturday on Fightful's YouTube channel. And if you are on DSPs, you can listen to it. Sure, we're on most of them. I'm assuming. I've never actually searched this on DSPs, but I'm assuming we're on most streaming platforms.
Yeah, I mean, I usually listen. I listen on Apple Podcasts. That's where I usually listen. So, because I'm usually not able to watch live, but and then you guys do Ask Grapsody every other Thursday on Fightful Select, correct?
Yes.
So that's a good time as well. Will actually answered my parenting question the other night, so
Yeah,
it was fun.
yeah. As the only dad on our show, um, I figured he'd have a great answer for that. I didn't really have an answer. I mean, of course, I have nieces and nephews, but
Right,
of course,
yeah.
it's different when you're a parent.
Oh yeah, for sure. But all right, man. Thanks so much for doing this. I know you're kind of in and out on Twitter. Do you want to give out your handle or?
Sure. You can follow me at PhilDL616. I still pop on sometimes, but I'm not nearly as active as I was.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. I understand. I'm not big enough to get the kind of heat you get, so I completely understand. So, yeah. So yeah, follow him, but most importantly, just go support the Grapsody guys because they're all great dudes and know what they're talking about when it comes to the world of pro wrestling. So
I think we try to be. We try to know what we're talking about.
I think your guys' track record is pretty good. So
might be.
Yeah. So for Phil, you can follow me at IbenSChris on Twitter. You can please leave a thumbs up on the video or subscribe to the channel. I'm also on podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that good kind of stuff. So subscribe on there as well. And yeah. So thanks for watching and listening. Thank you again to Phil for joining me today. And until next time, guys, see ya.